Why did I switch from Democrat to Republican? That's actually a very good question. A question that I've been meaning to publicly, respond to that. I was a typical person, like I said. I come from New York. Did half my life in New York. My childhood was in Puerto Rico. In New York, I never really was into politics. Can't remember when was the last time I even voted when I was in New York. But, it's kind of like you register to get your driver's license and you automatically get registered as a Democrat. That's basically how it is in New York. And I was one of those people. I moved here to Florida and Democrat was checked off on my box in my driver's license from New York. And when I came here, just continued along, So when I ran, obviously, if I'm already a Democrat, I ran as a Democrat, and that's part of, who I was and it's part of my history from New York. But when I ran as a Democrat, I noticed that a lot of things that were going on, a lot of my core values began to clash with the Democratic Party. And some of those values that began to clash were things that I didn't even talk about or bring out upon. But because of what people saw in me, my day-to-day life, who I was, I began to see opposition towards it. And I ran my race as best as I could. I ran and I represented who I am. But it wasn't until one of those meetings, I think it was like a month or two before the 2016 elections, there was a meeting in Miami where a lot of the high-ranking party members came down. They were speaking at a university. And then after that, they had a meeting with all the leaders of all the different Democratic caucuses and clubs. And at that time, I was vice president of the Hispanic caucus of the Democratic Party in Polk County. And they brought us to a meeting. And one of the people that was speaking at that meeting, one of the leaders at the state level, came out and said that no caucus or no club was to endorse a candidate or support a candidate unless they went through the main office and they signed a document. And for some reason, when they were having this conversation, they kept looking at me, and people were looking at me in this meeting. And I already had heard some rumblings at some of the meetings about who I was, because been a pastor for more than 20 years, a minister, family man. Being a minister and a faith-based leader, kind of gave them a presumption that I was against a lot of things. So I already heard some rumblings, and I raised my hand and I said, hey, what is this document that we need to sign? They said, well, it's a document with some questions on it. And I said, what questions? Why ain't you telling us what those questions are? No. Just contact the office and we'll tell you there. And I said, no, we're in a meeting here. Everybody's here. Why don't we address the elephant in the room? And I said, I know that question and that document is pointed directly at me. And they told me, oh, you don't know what we're talking about. I said, so please present it. And in that meeting there in Miami, one of the leaders came out and said that I had to sign a document saying that I was pro-abortion and pro-Planned Parenthood. Right there, I just stood up. And I said, wait a minute, I don't understand this. You will not endorse me nor support me as a candidate if I don't sign a document, and that I had to confess it verbally that I was pro-abortion and pro-Planned Parenthood. I said, first of all, I've never talked about that during my candidacy. I'm not a person to judge anybody. I didn't speak of that in my platform as a candidate. Here we are close to the elections, and they're telling me that I need to sign a document. And then one of the first things I told them was, where's the democracy in the Democratic Party, where I have to lose my freedom of choice, my liberty to be a valid candidate for the party? What happened to being a community leader? What happened to being somebody that's knowledgeable, experienced, prepared, passionate, somebody who's willing to stand on the line and fight for what's right? Those values are not important. And I told them, and I said, I'm not going to sign that document, and if that means that The Democratic Party is not going to endorse me. They're not going to support me. They're not going to financially help me. They're not going to do anything for me. Then so be it. I'm not going to sacrifice my core values. I have a belief that if you sacrifice your values once, you'll sacrifice your values repeatedly, because there will always be a new offer, a new temptation, and a new opportunity. You know, I told them right there and then, I said that I have many titles. I don't need to win the election to feel validated, to feel important in life. You know, I do enough, you know, in my community and as a leader that I don't need to. So if they don't support me, it's fine. One of the things I told them was that they were wrong about me, because the reason why I wouldn't sign that had nothing to do with just putting my religious beliefs out there. I believe that we live in a free society where we shouldn't obligate our beliefs on somebody else, that we have freedom of choice. We have freedom of speech. Those are the foundations of this country. And I cannot take somebody's freedom of speech, freedom of choice away to suit my own benefit. Everybody should be able to believe what they believe. They kept telling me to sit down. They kept telling me no. And I said, no, I need to speak. Being that you now have stated this, I need to explain who I am. And I gave them this simpler explanation. I told them, it's not based on my religious belief. I grew up, my father was a pastor, my grandfather was a pastor. I said, my decision not to sign a document saying that I was pro-abortion had nothing to do with religious beliefs. It had to do that my mother had me at 16 years of age. She was thrown out into the street when she gave the news to her parents that at 15 she had gotten pregnant. My mother was homeless. My mother had the choice that moment, under the pressure to get an abortion because she was not ready to have a kid. She made the decision, that famous, liberty of every woman and choice. She was given that choice. And she chose to, instead of abort me, she chose to give me up. And she gave me up to my grandparents in Puerto Rico. And they raised me for the majority of my life. And because of that choice that my mother made, I am who I am today. I've been a professor and a teacher for more than 15 years. I've educated people. I've helped teenagers turn their lives around. I've worked in the prison ministries and drug rehabilitation centers. And I've been able to make an impact with other people and other families. I've worked as a counselor, and I've been able to help marriages being restored and people turn away from depression and from suicide and help them start a new life. And I told them that day, and I said, if I was aborted, who would take my place? Who would have been there to help other people, to be a teacher, to be a community leader, to be somebody, to stand up with passion for what's right and what's wrong? And I said, so you're wrong to judge me about my religious beliefs. Who am I to judge anybody? And it wasn't about being against something. It was about me having the freedom and choice to say, I do not want to sign a document. I don't believe that anybody should be obligated to sign a document to be able to get support and to be able to get an endorsement. That's where we begin to go wrong as a society, is when we begin to obligate people to our benefit and our cause. You can't do this unless you do this. That's not the way to live. I ran my race without support, without endorsement, without nothing. In fact, I had several candidates come up to me, and they told me that there were meetings behind my back working against me, that the party did everything they could for me to not get elected. And with all of that, I came within 5 points of unseating an incumbent. After the elections, it hurt me deeply, and I had a time of reflection and thought. But before I could make a decision, the new elected chairman of the Democratic Party at the statewide level, not only the statewide, the nation level, came out with a statement, and it was in a news article on Facebook that said, if you were not pro-abortion, you can no longer be a candidate for the Democratic Party. So before I could make a decision and realize that my core values as a conservative as a family, as a father of three, a husband, as being a pastor, and before I could make a decision of to saying that my core values did not line up with what the Democratic Party core values are today, I was told that I could no longer be a candidate for the Democratic Party. Where's the democracy? Where's the diversity? Where did we go wrong as a society that we can tell people that if you don't fit, that if you don't do what I tell you to do, you are not viable? There are a lot of viable people out there. There are a lot of talented people out there. I'm not the only one that has talent, knowledge, experience, and passion to serve. I'm surrounded by a community that just wants the opportunity to do something great. That day, I got up, got dressed, drove down to my election office, supervisor of election, and I switched parties. I realized that my values, who I am, did not line up with a party that wanted to obligate me to do something so that I could be a candidate. That's why today, for more than 4 years now, going on 4 years, registered Republican, conservative, because it lines up with my values. And ever since I've joined the Republican Party, not once have I been told that I had to sign a document, that I had to fit into a mold, that I had to say anything or believe in something. They just let me be a candidate, and I'm thankful for that. That's why me, Benny Valentin, I am a candidate. I'm your candidate for State House of Representatives, District 42.